Did you know that LinkedIn released a report of the skills that companies need the most in 2020? They listed 5 soft skills and they listed 10 hard skills. And guess which skill was number 3 on the soft skills list? Collaboration. With that in mind, it is our duty to prepare our college students for the marketplace by incorporating group projects in our online courses. That's right, our students need to learn collaboration even online, especially when they'll probably have to do a lot of remote collaboration depending on their field. Well, in this series, I'm going to be sharing with you 6 projects that I have used over the past 10 to 13 years in my online courses. And I'm starting with Who Makes the Team. That's the project that I'm going to share with you today. I am Kellie Alston, your e-learning strategist who is passionate about helping you master the art of teaching online. So get your pen and pencil paper ready. I'm going to tell you all about who makes the team. Before I do that though, I want to let you know that I have a free course available called the FACE Method. And in this course, I share with you the 4 fundamental responsibilities, the 4 skills that you need to master as an online faculty member. And those skills are facilitation, assessment, communication, and empowerment. If you go over to kellyaustin.com and click that enroll here button, you will get access to this course. I want to know if this course is going to bless you because I believe it is. I've taken 16 years and condensed it into 5 little short lessons for you. And I believe that it will inspire you and help you love teaching online even more, because when you love it and you're passionate about it, your students will enjoy learning online all the more. Now let's get into who makes the team. If I were to give this project an official name, I would call it the Team Research and Interview Project. But in my course, we call it Who Makes the Team, WMTT. All right, now the purpose of this course is to develop a deeper understanding of the roles and responsibilities of a team within a field. It does not matter what field or what discipline that you teach. I know you can sit there and think of how teamwork plays a critical role in the success of that industry. So in education, if we look at higher ed, we have universities which have colleges on within that university, and then the colleges have departments. Okay, and then the departments have programs. That's teams on top of teams on top of teams. If we look at K-12 education, we can see that we have school districts that have school boards. Those districts have schools that have teachers in them and other professionals that work in those schools on various types of teams, and they have teams on top of teams on top of teams. So it doesn't matter if you're in healthcare, criminal justice, the arts, the sciences, sports, business, social sciences or technology, or any other field. I'm sure you can think about how teams work together. Let me say this. I thought about this when I was creating this slideshow, and how when we look at entertainers, they go on tour. Well, before they go on tour, before they present the entertainers, back in the day, I don't know how much they do that now, they used to have, a team that would, if you see movies about the Jackson 5 or any of the Motown acts, how they had a team that put their look together and who promoted them, and they had a tour manager, and they have choreographer. I mean, there's just so many different people that come together to make that group look good. So that was just an example that I thought of. But just think about your industry and you will be able to see how this project might be an integral assignment in your course. All right, let's get into the 3 components for the project. The first thing you're going to have your students do, or the first component, I shouldn't say the first thing because I'm going to tell you in a minute how these kind of work together. But the first component is the micro research paper. You want your students to write a very short paper about the responsibilities of the role of the person that they volunteered to be or to research, who is a part of the team. Okay, so that paper needs to just give a snapshot of that person's responsibilities. What role does that person play? How does that person impact the team? That's all you want them to tell you. In fact, in years past, I've told students that it could be a half a page to a page because it's not an intense and in-depth research paper. Next, this is the part that really takes time. You want them to conduct an interview of a person who is currently serving in that role. Okay? Simple, right? Next, they're going to present the information. The information that they learned from their research paper and the information that they learned from their interview. They're going to do this during a live session where you are there and all of their classmates are there, hopefully. However, the alternative to that is that they can record their presentation and submit it to you. That's not the one that I prefer, but that's the one that they can do. All right, project options. Let's look at these three components. Now, for the micro research paper, let's talk about that. You can have the students submit that research paper individually, okay? So what would that look like? I use the discussion board for group projects for them to submit it so everybody in the class can see it. So let's say you have a discussion board on your LMS and you would have them, each person in the group, like it would be group one, and they would submit their individual reports. Now that might work well for you if this is your first time doing group projects or your first time implementing this project. It's less work for the group when they submit their reports individually. However, I prefer the group document. The group document will be put together by the publisher. Now, I share with you in a previous video, Group Projects Made Easy, and I also have another video. If you click up, you'll be able to access that video where I explain to you the group roles that I believe are critical. Now, one of those roles is the publisher. The publisher is going to put this group document together. What's going to be in the group document? Okay, that document is going to have each research paper, and it's also going to have each interview and the interview questions. Like the students are going to have an interview and questions, and they're going to have the answers. So that's going to be in this group document. It's like a little booklet that they put together and submit it all as one. Okay. All right, so those are your two options for the paper, research paper. For the interview, you can create instructor-generated questions, or you can allow the students to create their own questions. Let's weigh the pros and cons. The instructor-generated question method is the one that I use because I want to make sure that we get some meat from that interview. So I create questions that allow them to ask some very analytical, some higher order thinking skills types of questions, not just questions, well, how long have you been doing this? Do you like it? What advice would you have for people who want to do those kind of, very lower level thinking questions? So I give them 6 questions, 5 or 6 questions on a little questionnaire that they can use. Now, it's kind of like a semi-structured interview because they have these questions to go by, but they can always ad lib and ask any other questions based on the flow of the conversation with the person. I don't want them to feel like, okay, I have 5 questions to ask you. Let's go down the list. But I want it to flow, and they can ask whatever comes to mind that they want to ask. So they can add questions to these questions, but they do have to ask the ones that I give them. The student-generated questions is going to add another step, because if you allow them to create their own questions, I would advise you to have them submit those questions to you for your approval before they conduct the interview. All right, so my preferences are the group document and the instructor-generated questions. However, if you want this to flow, just to be a little easier for you for your first time implementing it, you can have them just submit their own research papers to a group section on your discussion board forum. All right, lastly, the group presentation. I suggest that it is live, where everybody in the class can come and hear the presentation. Or it can also be live during that assigned time, because remember, I have advised you to have weekly sessions, that the groups have weekly live sessions, right? So whatever time they signed up for that's convenient for them, if it's Saturday at 12 o'clock noon, if that's their meeting time, then that can also be the time that they present. I'm sharing those options with you because if you have a asynchronous course where your students don't actually have class as a whole, then that's when they can present, because then you know that that's the time where everybody can be there because they signed up for it. However, in my courses, my students have an assigned time. We meet at night at 6:30 once a week, and so I already know that everybody is going to be there because they signed up, they registered for the class knowing that they had to be there at 6:30. All right, so the other option is that it is recorded. So the students, say for example, there's some strange reason that they can't meet at the time of the live class that you have, or the time of the live session that they signed up for. If the group says we have a little conflict, so and so can't be there, we want to do it recorded on another day from when they meet. That's absolutely fine. You can do that. The live session is better because you can then ask them questions, which is what I do, about the experience. And it's difficult to do that, obviously, if it's recorded. Okay, let's go through an example from a course that I teach. Who makes the team? Now, I want you to make sure that when you are assigning group projects that they align with your learning outcomes. Your goal is competency. Okay, when adults take courses, they want to be competent. They want to master what they are learning. So make sure that the project is in alignment with your learning outcomes. So for this particular course, one of the outcomes is to research and examine the roles of professionals and parents, multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, and transdisciplinary teams as partners in sharing observations and in developing an individualized education program or individualized family service plan. So we call that an IEP or an IFSP. So their job, the goal is that they research and examine those roles. Another outcome is that they investigate the functionality of interdisciplinary teams. Okay, so this project is in alignment with those learning outcomes. Now, when you give your students a project, I would encourage you to have some preparatory steps, some things that they should do to prepare for this assignment. So a preparatory step for this course and this particular project is that they read chapter 10 because it breaks down the members of an IEP team and the members of an IFSP team, and also gives them that understanding of how these teams came to be as a result of legislation and how they serve the student. The other way that I have them to prepare is something that we do in class, which is an actual group discussion, a group activity, I should say. And that activity is called a text recap activity. If you click the card above, it will take you to the video where I break down what the text recap activity is. All right, so who makes the team is broken into, these are the instructions, and I just kind of categorize them into little 6 sections. So first, your students are going to determine, first my students are going to determine the type of team. Now, when you teach this course, there may not be a choice. In this particular case, there's a choice between an IFSP team or an IEP. Your team might just be some type of healthcare team that there's no choosing. But if there are choices, you can have them to choose. So they choose between that team, and then what they're going to do is list all of the members of that team. When are they doing this? During their live session. I have to keep emphasizing that. They must meet live. So they list all the members of the team. Next, they're going to volunteer for the members of the team. So most of the time in this course, the students choose an IEP team, which serves children 5 years and older. And so let's say on that team, they have to have an administrator. So they might have a principal that say the book has listed that they need the regular education teacher or the general ed teacher, the special education teacher, and other professionals. And it may list the school counselor. It may list the physical therapist, the occupational therapist, the speech therapist, the school psychologist. It may list a whole battery of people. Well, they're going to look at that list and then they get to volunteer for the role that interests them. Next, they're going to research the responsibilities of the role that interests them. So let's say I chose to research the role that a physical therapist might play on an IEP team. So, or the role that the administrator, the principal, let's go with the principal, might play on the IEP team, right? Okay, so then I'm going to schedule an interview with a principal. So I teach my students to contact 2 or 3, unless they know someone. A lot of times they already know somebody, that's why they pick that role. But if not, I tell them to contact 2 or 3 people just in case someone doesn't get back with them and within the time frame that they need to have this project done. And lastly, they present what they've learned from the micro research and the interview. So in this course, and who makes the team, the students are choosing between an IEP and an IFSP, and they're going through all these steps. All right, now these are the fine details. You want to make sure that the students have 3 to 4 weeks to complete this project. And what does that mean? That means that they need to meet 3 to 4 times live. Okay? Yes, I keep emphasizing that. You want to encourage them again to request interviews right away and to contact 2 individuals or more. Now, this is not a project that some may call like a waterfall project where one step has to be done before you go to another step. In fact, you want your students, as soon as you assign this project, they need to start getting those interviews in place, and I said interviews because I'm talking about the whole team, but they're only going to interview one person. So they need to go ahead and start contacting those individuals and get that interview scheduled. Meanwhile, they're working on their research and writing that research paper. So you don't want them to wait to do one or the other. They should be doing these simultaneously for this particular project. I also want to talk to you about these components. You want to create a questionnaire which provides reflection for them. At the end of the presentation, so they do their presentation, they want to go through the reflection process, and that's where your reflector kicks in. That's one of the 5 roles that I advise you to have. And I have a questionnaire that asks them different questions about the actual project, how they felt about how they put it together, what they learned from it, those kinds of things. Next, the submission should be on the discussion board. That's what my students do. But of course, you may have a different place that you want them to submit it there. I have them to submit it there because I want everybody in the class to be able to benefit from it and see it. Their interview options. They can do a face-to-face interview. They can do a phone interview. They can do video conferencing, or they can do a video where they're actually sitting beside the person and they video tape that, or they can also do an email interview. In all cases, they have to produce the product from that interview. So if it's face-to-face and it's just, they interview the person, then they can just write their answers on the document. That's absolutely fine. If it's a phone interview, they can just write the answers. That's fine with me. They can do the video conference or the email, but here's the thing. I give them extra credit if they videotape, whether it's a video conference or they're in person. I give them extra credit if they submit the audio for the phone conversation, the interview, and if they submit a photo of them, so perhaps they went to that person's place of business and met with them, or they met with them at Panera Bread or somewhere, and they take a picture, I give them extra credit for that. That just makes the project all the more interesting because we get to see the interview as well. We get to hear the person talking to them, or we get to see who it is that they interviewed. All right, so we are at the end here, and the last thing that I want to do is help you to understand how this project aligns with the 6 elements of group projects. All right, so choice. How did the students have choice? So many ways. They got to choose, in this particular case, which team they wanted to research. Then they got to choose which role that they wanted to research. When it came to instructions, I give them step-by-step detailed instructions, and they have a rubric that serves as a checklist to kind of help them gauge the quality of their assignment. We also want to emphasize again that they have weekly live sessions for planning and discussion, and they do that in the course. They have group roles. I share with you what the reflector is doing and what the publisher is doing. But when they meet live, that they have a group leader, a timekeeper, and they also have a reporter who's going to be letting me know how well they're doing, who's showing up for the meetings, if people are submitting what they're supposed to submit. They also have their project roles. Each role that they chose as a part of the team, that's their project role. Okay, for planning spreadsheets, they're going to have a sheet. They have a sheet where they decide what they're going to be doing every single week. And let me add to that the weekly deadlines. Let me give you this advice. Don't encourage your students to make a list of all the things that they want to get done with this project at the very first meeting. It's better for them to plan as they go, because students have other courses that they're taking. They have a life outside of class, and sometimes they make these grandiose plans and they get overwhelmed and they can't get them done. So I would encourage you to make sure that your students, they meet their first live session and they say, okay, what do we want to have done before our session next week? Okay, so that we can look over what we've done so far. What date do we want to have our interviews done? Okay, you can push those towards the end because that's based on somebody else's schedule. But what date do we want to have our papers done, our research paper done? Okay, what day do we want to make sure that we edit those papers and that we have the full draft submitted so that everybody can look over it? Because their group grade is going to come from how well all that is all put together, how well it's all written. So they want to see what their classmates are also submitting. So make sure that they set deadlines on a weekly basis. That's what they do in my class, and that's why they're so successful. And then you set a date for the date of the presentation should be included when you assign the project. They should know when their presentation date is. All right, so what time is it? When I was a little girl, there was a band called Mars Day and the Time, and he used to ask the question, what time is it? It's time for you to subscribe to this channel if you have not done so, because I'm going to be sharing with you what I hope to be very helpful instructional strategies and approaches and projects and assignments that I have used successfully over the years. Click the notification bell so that you know when whenever a video is made available. And like the video. I know you're watching, but I want you to like the video so that I can get that feedback from you. Place a comment. It's so encouraging to read comments. And if you have a question, I would love to answer any questions that you have. And share this video with a colleague who might also be thinking about incorporating group projects in their online courses, or they may already be doing that, but they're looking for some new ideas. I am Kellie Alston signing off with you, and until our next time, continue to create dynamic learning communities online.